We are talking about audiobooks today. This is something we've talked about in a few recent webinars, but I have some new like fun stats and stuff I wanted to talk about. And I want to talk about kind of the dollars and cents aspect of this too, when it comes to audiobooks, which is why the title is what it is. We want to boost your bottom line with audiobooks, right? Is what we're talking about. That's the specific title of this. If you've been to some of our previous audiobook webinars, some of this stuff is going to be information you've heard before, but I wanted to add some more to that and also provide an opportunity for those who have missed it to be able to see that information again. So a couple things I should note here before we get started. We do have some other, we always have webinars coming up. Right. Next week, we're going to be talking about organizing and managing group promos. And then I'm going to be on vacation. So after that, there will be a couple weeks without webinars. And I apologize in advance. I know. But um, you can just, in the meantime, while I'm gone, just email BookFunnel support like every day or so and say how you really miss Jack's webinars, and they'll make me make more of them for you. So no, you don't have to worry about that. I'll do them on my own. All right. But anyway, just know that there will be webinars next week, and then there'll be a couple weeks without them. We'll be coming back in July though with some fun new topics and things like that as well. Right. Also today, if you have questions, like always, put them in the Zoom chat. Emma and Kelly are joining me today. They'll be in the Zoom chat to answer any questions that you might have, and then also save them for the Q&A. It is looking like it's going to be a little bit of a small group today, folks. I do want to say that, and that's totally fine, right? In fact, I sometimes like it a little better when it's just a small group of authors because I know I can help everybody with the questions that they have. So we'll take some time at the end here when we get to the Q&A. If you're able to stick around, I know not everybody can, but if you are able to stick around, I can answer, questions you have about audiobooks. And since it is a smaller group, once we get through those audiobooks questions, if you have questions on other stuff too, we might have time for that as well. I don't want to like overpromise, underdeliver, but if you have questions about something else, we got a small group today. Should be fine. Right. So we're going to talk about why you should offer audiobooks if you need convincing, right? Maybe you're on the fence. Like, I don't know if audiobooks is something I should do or not. I'm gonna convince you today that you need to do it. We're gonna crunch the numbers on this as well. I'm gonna share some statistics that will also convince you if my other arguments don't work. And then we're gonna talk about audiobook pricing and royalties before we get into some of the options that you have for producing audiobooks, and then how you would go about distributing them if you wanted to use BookFunnel, direct sales. And then we can also get to the dashboard too. If you want to see the nuts and bolts of like how you would upload and create an audiobook, we can do that aspect of it as well. So we're going to be talking about a number of different things here, right? All audiobook related, but the numbers today are what I'm really excited to share with you all. And I think there's some different strategies we can talk about for different authors. Maybe you're in KU, maybe you're a wide author, maybe you are wanting to focus more on direct sales. Maybe you have a large audience. Maybe your audience is really small. Like there's different circumstances where I think audio can help you regardless of what situation you happen to be in. And I want to talk about that as well. I guess it's not listed here as a bullet point, but it'll be part of the conversation. So why? Vash is here. By the way, I do recognize a fair bit of the names here. Tara was here in the orientation just a bit ago. I recognize Anne is here, and a few other folks. Say hi. I try to keep up with everybody. If you've been here to multiple um, webinars and so forth, say hi in the chat. It's good to see you guys again. So anyway, I got distracted there. Here we go. Right. So why you should offer audio to your readers. First of all, audio is considered a premium product, right? And the thing about a premium product is that it demands a premium price. I've said this before, whenever audio comes up. Ebooks are great, but the argument's always, well, I like paperbacks, right? So much there. I can hold them in my hands. I can smell them, right? That those are the arguments that are used for why, ebooks are inferior, right? And ebooks generally are kind of just there's a specific audience for them, and the prices are much cheaper. And so as an author or an indie author, or whatever situation you happen to be in, you have to sell a lot of books, right? It's a numbers game, right? If you're only making $2 on a sale, well, you need to make a lot of sales. With audiobooks, you're offering a premium product, and there's a different expectation from your customers, right? Generally, this means there's going to be more royalties for you at the end of the day. Generally, if I could go back and edit this slide, that generally would be like italicized, because sometimes, depending on certain situations, if you're distributing through certain distributors, it might not be, right? In certain circumstances. Right? But we're going to talk about all those numbers a little bit later too. Okay? But it's a premium product. So know that. So there's a different expectation from the customer as well when they're buying an audiobook versus buying an ebook. They're more willing to spend more money on an audiobook than they are an ebook. Some of your readers are going to want everything that you offer. You're going to have super fans that are going to want to get your ebook and your print version and your audiobook. So the more formats you can offer, the better, right? If they're just a fan of your books and they want to collect them all, and they want to have them in their Kindle app, and they want to have them in print, and they want the special edition hardcover, and they want the audiobooks, right? It's a simple argument, but I think it makes sense. They're going to want to have everything that you offer. So offering it to them in some ways, if you're already making some income, or you have an audience already, you're already making an income from your books, from your writing, it's kind of like free money, right? Once you offer a new format, because there's going to be some of your readers who maybe bought your ebook that now we're going to jump at the audiobook because they like audiobooks and you're offering one, right? Sometimes audio is also just superior. Uh, some information is best communicated in audio as compared to print. There are some listeners that will exclusively listen to audiobooks. They don't read books or paperback or ebook. So there's that too. But sometimes you might be able to communicate whatever it is you're trying to do better through audio, or maybe the listeners you're looking for are more likely to listen to something than they are to sit down and read it. But you're going to be reaching more readers and listeners, right? Like I said, some readers will only listen to audiobooks and some are going to prefer it. So these, I think, are all some good, basic, simple arguments as to why you should offer audio to your readers. Now, let's talk about some numbers and data here, right? For starters, 53% of US adults in 2023 reported having listened to audiobooks. This was an increase of 8% from 2022. What this should tell us is that more people are listening to audiobooks than they have before. It is becoming increasingly popular, right? And not that you always want to be chasing the latest trend, but those numbers, that's a big deal, right? And granted, that's 2023's data. I don't know that we have 2024 data yet, right? Maybe there is some out there. This is what I managed to find. And so we're seeing an increase. More adults are listening to audiobooks than they have before, right? Young listeners, 18 to 29, actually make up the largest demographic of audiobook listeners. They're 30%. That's the largest individual demographic. All the other demographics are smaller in percentage, but still significant. And this could represent for you, potentially, an untapped market of readers and listeners that might not have found your books otherwise, right? In a lot of cases, right, these young listeners, might be willing, in a it might seem counterintuitive, like they would rather listen to an audiobook than just buy an ebook with the price difference and that sort of thing. but it's a thing, right? People are listening to audiobooks while they're, exercising or while they're doing stuff. They're multitasking. This is a trend among, that age group, and even kind of in the millennial age group too, a little bit older than that as well. And so it's a thing they've already adopted, is the idea. And so with your ebooks, you might not be getting very many readers in that age group. But if you offered audio, you might. Those might be, that might be the untapped market, or some of the untapped market that you might find if you offer audio. Over 50% increase in audiobook sales over the last 5 years. So, what that looks like is there's just more and more audio, essentially, right? Audiobooks are taking over with the changes in the market, with the ease of audiobook distribution, right? Say whatever you will about various audiobook distributors, Amazon, Findaway Voices, whatever it happens to be, it's becoming a bigger and bigger deal. More audiobooks are being sold, more people are buying them. More, it's also creating essentially new readers. They're listeners, but readers that haven't been, it's an untapped market for them as well. So that's the trend. Audiobooks are on the rise. You don't want to ignore it, right? Now, audiobook pricing, this is something that's inevitably going to come up. And so I was talking about how audiobooks are a premium product. And ebooks, probably don't get thrown into that bin of premium products, right? Amazon and other retailers like you to price them between $2.99 and $9.99, right? Nonfiction can usually price a little bit higher, but fiction sometimes you have to, in my genre, science fiction, for example, I see a lot of 99-cent box sets that are like, 300 plus thousand words. I have one of those myself too. And you think like you're giving all that away for 99 cents. Like, holy cow. Well, with audiobooks, it's certainly different, right? So what are the expectations that have been set by the industry? Well, Amazon is the biggest player in this regard, and this is based off of their kind of guidelines and suggestions is what I'm going to share here, but this is widely adopted. And so while this Amazon is kind of the source in this regard, I think it's actually a pretty good guide if you're looking at pricing your audiobooks, right? So if it's under an hour, $7 or less, what it's all going to populate here as I'm talking, right? We have $7 to $10 if it's 1 to 3 hours. And you'll see the longer it is, the more you can charge. What this is really telling you is this is the price that the buyer is willing to pay. Now, these would be audiobooks with digital delivery, so keep that in mind, right? If we're talking about like old-fashioned CDs with a box and everything, those are usually a little bit more expensive than that too. I don't know that anybody's necessarily looking to do that, right? Right? Tell me if I'm wrong. But right, this is generally the price range that you're working with, right? There's also an expectation, though, and I should mention this because we're going to get to this, that the price should be lower if it's AI or digitally narrated. So keep that in mind. If you're going to be using AI or digital narration, we're going to talk about that in a minute. You might want to kind of cut these prices in half or somewhere in between 50% and that ballpark range, just because it's something new, right? The market doesn't know what to think of it yet. There are some listeners, some audiobook listeners, that refuse to listen to AI narrated audiobooks. And so it's a little bit more of a hard sell right now for some audiobook listeners. So there is an expectation that if you're selling audiobooks that have been digitally or AI narrated, that this price should be lower than what I have listed here, right? But this is intended to give you some guidelines. These are not hard and fast rules. It's not like, oh, your book is, 3.5 hours. It must be exactly $11.45. No, this is just a kind of a guideline of what customers, what buyers are expecting, right? How much of this are you giving away in royalties, though? Or how much are you going to be making? Well, sometimes you might only see 20 to 40% royalties, depending on how you choose to distribute. So that's another important thing to note. But we'll be talking about one way that you should all probably know about how you can get the most bang for your buck, right? When it comes to selling your audiobooks. We'll get to that at the end. You have more options to create your audiobooks than ever before. Uh, for starters, there's traditionally narrated audiobooks. This is the way things have been done for a long time. Uh, Sometimes you're paying up front, or there's royalty sharing methods where you will, and this gets organized in a number of different ways, but you will not have to pay up front, but you're splitting the royalties either with the narrator or sometimes with the distributor who hires the narrator, whatever it happens to be. This will produce the highest quality product. There's no getting around it. You're hiring a professional to narrate your audiobooks. So this is going to demand the highest price tag. It's also going to have the highest barrier to entry. There are some listeners who will buy audiobooks simply based on who the narrator is, right? And so if you go out and you hire a really popular narrator, that's going to cost you. You might not be able to afford that at this point. I don't know, but you're probably going to make it up in the long run. I personally would choose Samuel L. Jackson to narrate everything I have ever written. That's my personal choice. But whoever you would choose, right? You look into them. It's a big decision. It's a big decision to choose a narrator that's a good fit, right, for what you're doing, right? And in all seriousness, again, it's going to produce the highest quality product. Self-narrated audiobooks are another option. And this is incredibly accessible with the technology we have today. You probably have a laptop that has uh, sound recording software on it, right? Right, that software is there. I know on a Mac, this is GarageBand. There's other free software available if you're on a PC, and you can get a microphone. I actually have one here. If I can grab it from, there we go. This guy, I don't use this for webinars, but I've used this in the past, and I keep it here as a prop, actually, whenever we talk about audiobooks, right? But this microphone, this is a Yeti blue, like a snowball, is what they call this. This was $100 when I got it. I don't know what it is now, but there's some good options out there. So it's a relatively cheap, low barrier to entry. And sometimes the readers do like hearing the author's voice. They like hearing the story told from the author. It's an affordable option for this reason. It really just takes your time. You have to put time into it. The investment in terms of money probably going to be the cheapest option, in all honesty. But it's going to take time from you. But the thing is, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. And I'm trying to deliver this message gently. Not everybody has a voice for audio. Or maybe you don't have the skills, the editing skills to produce a product that's professional enough that people are going to appreciate. There's a lot of listeners out there who prefer that it's not narrated by the author, or they've had bad experiences with self-narrated or author-narrated audiobooks. So it's going to be appealing if you're looking for a budget option, but keep in mind it's not for everybody. So you'd want to get some feedback. It's a skill you're going to have to build if you're going to do this, and it's going to take time. So if you choose to go that route, I would be patient. Obviously, there's going to be some folks out there for whom this option just isn't possible based on time, or if you happen to have a disability that makes it difficult for you to narrate your own audiobooks, which is all understandable. But those are things that you want to take into account if you're going to choose to go down that route, right? And then, of course, there's AI, speech to text, text to speech narrated audiobooks, or digitally narrated audiobooks. I guess we could use that as kind of the umbrella term. This is controversial, and I want everybody to share their most controversial opinions about AI in the Zoom chat, so that we're all aware of everybody's opinions. But to be serious, yes, this is a real thing. It's already made an impact on the market when it comes to audiobooks. There are big retailers already that include Amazon, Apple, right, Google, that are making AI narrated audiobooks easy and accessible for authors. So in some cases, you might be able to do it automatically on whatever platform you happen to be on with your ebooks, and you can just kind of convert them over. Some of those tools are really easy to use, but there's also some other popular tools out there. Things like 11 Labs. Natural Reader is one that I've been using recently. There's a lot of them out there, right? Contrary to popular belief, though, it is not simply a push a button, make an audiobook. It does require some work. And depending on what you're going to do, this can sometimes be more expensive than self-narrated audiobooks. A lot of these services, like 11 Labs, if you choose to go that route, have monthly fees in order to use their service. And so in the grand scheme of things, that's, an additional cost to you. Right. There are options to use AI of your own voice as well with voice cloning. So this is another option that you have, which might seem attractive. It's kind of like a happy medium between digitally narrated and self-narrated. You kind of get the best of both worlds. But voice cloning can be a little tricky in certain circumstances. But it's there, and this is one of the options that you have. Right. And so you have to choose what's best for you, really. As far as the AI debate goes, I know I mentioned how controversial it is, and everybody's going to have differing opinions. We don't take sides on this. As far as we're concerned, however you choose to produce your audiobook, you can distribute it with BookFunnel. We don't discriminate in that regard. If you have a self-narrated, traditionally narrated, or digitally narrated audiobook, you can upload them to BookFunnel and distribute them, and it's no problem. Right. So we don't have a flag in on any hill in this argument. My analogy isn't making any sense there, but we're not picking sides, right? You can use BookFunnel to distribute it however you want. I'm just telling you what your options are, and some of these options are going to make sense for some of you more than others. Some of you, the traditionally narrated audiobook route is going to sound the best. It's the most expensive, but it's probably going to save you the most time, right? In the grand scheme of things, and it's going to produce the highest quality product. For some of you, self-narration, maybe you're really familiar with audio editing and recording. And so that's really easy for you. You have a lot of time on your hands, maybe. I have 3 kids, right? Myself, a full-time job, and then, my author stuff as well. So I don't have time. Time is not an option for me. So for me personally, self-narrating my own audiobooks is not something I can do, right? Digitally narrated audiobooks, again, maybe that's a good fit for you if you're kind of in between there where you have a little money to spend, maybe and you maybe don't have a whole lot of time, then it's an option that you can look into. So BookFunnel Audiobooks are distributing your audiobooks with BookFunnel. You have a few options here, and so I want to go over this. For those of you who aren't familiar with BookFunnel's tools for audiobooks, Short Audio is one tool that we have. This is a simple kind of basic audio distribution option. It's available on the mid-list author plan and above. It is a single MP3 file and no more than 2 hours in length. This is ideal for samples or audio magnets, right? Things like that, if you're wanting to deliver them in that way. Right? It's not for longer audiobooks, and it doesn't have the same navigation tools. Right. So with an actual audiobook, you can skip ahead chapters, that sort of thing. Excuse me. With this option, it's not available, but it's just a simple way that you can use audio for other things as well. There's authors who I know have done, they'll record kind of a podcast style audio and share that with Short Audio or some kind of bonus content. Right. So there's lots of things you can do with it. The audiobooks beta is still going on, right? So the BookFunnel audiobooks beta is available on the mid-list author plan by request. And it allows you to upload multiple MP3 files for your audiobook. So an MP3 for each chapter of the audiobook, for example. The BookFunnel Cloud Player and the app are the default options where listeners can listen to your audiobooks, but you can optionally allow them to download the MP3 files if you want. They won't be protected by DRM or anything like that, but you can give them that option. And some listeners do appreciate that, so they can sideload it or put it on whatever device they want to use. Right? Maybe they want to. We've had some audiobook listeners who have wanted to like put their audiobooks on a flash drive that they can plug into their car or something. They audiobook listeners are pretty savvy as well, pretty tech savvy, and so they know what to do with those files if they have them. So it is an option that you have. It's not required though. Right? There will be, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth here. There will be an announcement about the BookFunnel Audiobooks beta, hopefully coming up soon. So my advice, if you're on the Midlist Author plan and you have not yet requested access to the beta, would be to request access to the beta and join it as soon as you can. When the feature is out of beta, it will be a paid add-on to your BookFunnel plan. Those of you who are in the beta will have, I think, about 60 days to choose which plan you'd want to upgrade to if you want to continue using the feature. So there would be some reasons why you might want to join the beta if you haven't joined already. So you have complete access to all of the other tools on BookFunnel when you're using audiobooks. So you can have audio reader magnets, advanced review copies, direct sales, anything you can do with ebooks on BookFunnel, you can do with audiobooks. And of course, this is backed up by BookFunnel reader support, just like ebooks. So we've helped listeners who are having trouble listening to their audiobook, maybe with their Bluetooth device. We can help troubleshoot all those things. So all of that stuff is still available for your readers and listeners if they're using audiobooks. Now, audiobooks and direct sales, I was saying earlier how when we were talking about pricing, the one option you have to kind of maximize your profits, and that is direct sales. Direct sales with anything really is going to maximize your profits the most. And so it's a good idea, right? Especially when we're talking about audiobooks. So BookFunnel does not take a cut of your sales. You do not pay us a percentage of your sales at all. You pay your transaction fees to your sales platform. That's Shopify, Thrivecart, PayHip, what have you, and that's it. You pay them what they get, and that's that. Right? And then you get the rest of that. Right? Obviously, yeah, okay. You do have to pay BookFunnel for your plan and all that pricing and so forth. Sure, I will mention that, and so because somebody's gonna be like, well, technically, if you calculate it, sure, right? So $10 a month, maybe to your Midlist Author plan or what have you. Yes, that is a cost of doing business, but there's no additional fees. So if you sell your audiobook for $10, you're going to be paying a small percentage plus usually like a 30-cent fee or something like that. And then the rest of it is yours. The rest of that money is yours. BookFunnel doesn't take a cut of it. Right. Bundling products together also allows you to make big sales to eager readers. This is something we've seen a lot of authors do using BookFunnel direct sales. Some of the most prolific authors selling bundles of ebooks and audiobooks, so like 60 books or something like that. It's kind of crazy. And so it's a great way for you to kind of maximize your profits, right? You're providing a lot of value to your customers, and you're also getting a lot out of it too. So it's a good deal. Delivery with direct sales is managed through a single link. So when your customer completes their checkout, they're going to be able to click on a single link and then download all of their books. And you have control over those delivery options too. So you can choose to allow them access to the files or restrict it to the cloud player or BookFunnel app. And then you can easily manage your refunds and returns there as well from your BookFunnel dashboard. The thing I want to talk about in this regard, depending on where you're at, right? If you're, for example, if you are a KU author and all your books are in KU, the important thing to keep in mind is that the KDP Select only applies to your ebook. And so if you have a modest sized audience and you're doing well on Kindle Unlimited, it might make sense to start doing audiobooks through direct sales. Right? If you're not depending on that income, right, you can build it slowly over time, and maybe even kind of go like wide, if you will, with your audiobooks, but include direct sales maybe as one of your primary strategies, especially if you're going to be driving ads to your audiobooks. If you're going to try to sell audiobooks through ads, it makes a lot of sense. Right? When on the ads I run, I see comments occasionally from people who've seen the ads who are like, I wish this wasn't I wish this was an audiobook or something like that. And so there are some eager audiobook listeners out there that would want to find your book, or whether it's through ads or what have you, and would be willing to jump at it. And if you can provide it at a good price, because direct sales allows you to keep the majority of the money, you can provide them a value. Right? They can get something for a good value, and you still get a good chunk of that money. Whereas in some cases, depending on how you choose to distribute your audiobooks, again, you might be seeing a significantly small amount or a very small amount, right? Let's use the 40% royalty example. If you sell an audiobook for $10 and you make 40%, you're going to make $4, right? You could sell that same audiobook through direct sales if you wanted to for $5 and you'd make more money. A little bit more money. Not a whole lot more, right? Cents more, maybe $4 and something, right? But you would make more money than you would selling it for $10. And so really, it allows you not to, it's not about undercutting another distributor, but it gives you that freedom to offer a good value to your customer, which is going to make selling your audiobooks easier, and you're going to be making more money at the same time. I think it's a win-win. If you're already wide with your audiobooks, so those of you in that situation, you're not, married to Kindle Unlimited when it comes to your ebooks. If you're not doing direct sales with your existing audiobooks, if you have them out there, you should add it as an option. And direct sales for wide authors for ebooks as well, right? It goes without saying that that would be my recommendation to any wide authors, whether it's ebooks or audiobooks. You should have direct sales as a component of that. And again, like I mentioned with audiobooks, if you are spending any money on ads and you're a wide author, right? If that's part of your strategy, I generally recommend pointing those ads at your direct sales platform. Again, because it's going to make your ads more profitable. If you are pointing people to your direct sales platform, granted, there's a lot of work that goes into that, building a store and all that stuff, right? There's a lot of steps where you could, make mistakes. And so I don't want to make it seem like it's, snap your fingers and it's that easy. There's some work that has to be put into it. But if you build a solid direct sales platform, it just makes sense to point ads there because you're not having to split those royalties with the platform, right? And so if the ads are going to cost you the same amount anyway, you might as well make more money from each sale that happens. So if you are a wide author and you are doing ebooks, audiobooks, right, whatever it happens to be, direct sales should be part of your wide strategy if it's not already, right? Another strategy that I wanted to mention that's going to maybe come out of left field for some folks, because this is about building an audience, is if you have an audiobook that you've produced, maybe self-narrated, maybe digitally narrated. I don't think most folks would want to do this with like a traditionally narrated audiobook just because of the cost, but they can be really great lead magnets. And you can use them in a variety of ways. So you could use it as a reader magnet, if you will, to build your mailing list. Right? I probably wouldn't be giving away like a 30-hour long audiobook, but maybe one that's a few hours long. This could be a great lead magnet that you could use to grow your mailing list. But audio is special in this one regard, in that uh, it's it's something that you can easily share in other ways too. And what I'm getting at here I'll just let the cat out of the bag, is social media. Authors, I think, struggle a lot of times with social media platforms and what to do on them because, well, what am I going to talk about? Right? If I have a YouTube channel or a TikTok or whatever the kids are doing these days, what am I going to post there? Right? What am I going to put up there? And it for certain types of creators, this is really easy, right? If you make digital art, I think it's a lot easier to share that on social media than books. If you make video games, for example, it's a lot easier to share that on social media. And there are plenty of authors out there who are really savvy and they have really good ideas on how to um, creatively share their books or share themselves on social media, right? There's all the TikTok trends and things like that. And there are some authors that on YouTube will primarily have their YouTube channel be focused on, right, how to be a self-published author. But with audio, you can literally just share your books on those social media platforms as well. Again, yeah, you're giving it away for free essentially. I understand that, and you're not going to want to do that with everything, but I do want to mention this because if social media is a component of your marketing strategy, why not upload uh, your audio lead magnet to YouTube where people can stumble upon it? Why not upload snippets in short form video that you upload to Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts or Facebook Reels, right? That sort of thing. It can give you content to post there that is literally coming directly from your books. And so somebody is going to see that content. And I think it's much easier to market audiobooks on social media than it is to market ebooks, right? Because social media platforms are visual, but there's also video and really audio involved, right? Because when do you have video without audio, right? So it can make growing a social media platform as an author easier as well. You have something you can easily share in snippets. Again, some of you are rolling your eyes at me. Totally fine with that. I had to mention it though, because I think there are some authors who are wanting to build a social media presence and not sure how to do it. And they don't want to do, the TikTok trends and kind of funny little skits where they talk to themselves, which is kind of the thing to do on some of those social media platforms. Maybe you just want to share your books. Audiobooks are the way to do that, right? In fact, there's a dedicated on YouTube. I'm a YouTube user myself. There's an entire audience of readers who listen to audiobooks on YouTube. Right? And some of them will discover you there and then go on to purchase the rest of the audiobooks you have to offer. Or maybe that's even your business model. I know there are some authors who they grow their channel on YouTube and they make AdSense revenue from their audiobooks there as people listen to it. That may not be what you want to do, but it's an option. So, question time. Let me find Kelly and Emma here and see what they have. Okay, there we go. I've got both of you. What do the folks want to know? Do they think I'm crazy? What?
Nope, not at all.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So we have a couple of questions regarding production companies. I
Yeah.
think it was the same author who asked. Um Modelo, I believe. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your names. um, so I have a pretty cinematic based book with action. Is
Mhm.
there an audiobook company, production company that can add sounds and sound effects to the background? And then another question was, do you have recommendations for companies that can do such a thing?
Yes. I don't, unfortunately. I don't have recommendations, but I know that they exist. I know that they're out there, and that can add a lot to an audiobook. So I think you're right to go down that route, especially if it's a good fit. Maybe Kelly, if you can do a search here and see what we find, and see
Mhm.
if so at least we can provide some information. I unfortunately don't have direct experience, so I can't give a verdict on what my opinion would be on which one would be superior or what have you. But I do think that's a good idea. I think I remember uh, listening to kind of in the style of like those old radio programs. It was called the Fourth Tower of Inverness. Someone shared that with me, a tape, and listened to it, and it's not an audiobook per se, really, but there were all the sound effects and everything that were included really made it an immersive experience. And so I think for audiobooks it makes sense too, where you can add them. I As far as production companies, you might even be able to find, maybe not just a production company, but you might even be able to find a narrator who specializes in that if you want to work with one directly, or possibly an independent editor who could take an audiobook and add that to it, right? So there's a number of ways I imagine you could go about it. But if you want to do it all kind of under one umbrella, I'm sure there are companies out there that do that as well. It's probably going to come with an extra cost, so be aware of that. But yeah, it totally makes sense, and I think that's a good path to go down, for sure.
I found one called Graphic Audio. I'm not sure if they're a publisher though, and I know there's a company called Podium. That one is a
Okay.
publisher, like they
Yeah.
actually buy the rights and then they take over. And you
Yeah.
kind of have to uh, either like you have to submit your book or they come after, like they find you.
Sure.
So
They
that's
hunt
not
you down.
quite the same. I do know I was at 20 books a couple years ago and there was a company there that did full cast with
Yeah.
like complete background add-ins. So I know they're
Sure.
out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, they do exist, and the one thing I would say is if you're leery of like turning over the rights to your audiobook to a company like that, again, look at all your options. I'm sure you can find somebody who is an experienced audiobook editor who has some experience in adding the background sounds and so forth. So you might be able to kind of piece it together as well if that's what you're looking at doing, and you don't want to like sign your rights away, right? So you have options, but yeah. All right, Emma. Next question.
All right. Did we do the lead magnet question, Kelly?
We did
No, I
not.
think we've just done the first one so far. So yeah,
So Anne is asking, could you walk us through the back end process for an audio lead magnet? So are you
yeah,
driving your audience to purchase the full audiobook, etc.?
right. So for starters, right, let's start with what you're going to offer them. So you could offer, for example, let's compare this to an ebook series. So I'll use my own series as an example. So I have a reader magnet that's a short story, like 15 to 18,000 words, I think. Last I checked. um, and then I have a 9 book box set. And so what I would do is personally is I'm going to make an audiobook of that reader magnet. I'm going to make an audiobook that's the box set, and I'm going to give away that lead magnet completely. I'm going to give away the whole thing, right? And so it would be at that length. I think that would be around a 3-hour audiobook, depending on the speed of narration and so forth, if I'm not mistaken. So it's an attractive offer, right? I would recommend erring on the side of generosity and giving them more than what they're expecting. Not so much that you're like giving away the farm, but in general, what I see is that when you are, especially when you're running ads and you're trying to convince somebody to, hey, download this free audiobook, When it's a 3 hour long audiobook, they're like, okay, that's some value there that I'm getting out of this. And that's gonna grease the the wheels there a little bit to make it easier for them to make the decision to join your mailing list. And then ultimately, what you're going to want to do then is have some sort of automation sequence through your mailing list service that's going to follow up with them to, make them an offer on buying whatever comes next, maybe at a discounted rate, something like that. I gotta remember this guy's name, because this is an example that I want to use. And Emma and Kelly, maybe you can tell me. He's what is it? Is it there's a show that he has. He goes around to different restaurants and he fixes them, right? Not like manual labor, but like struggling restaurants and helps them out. And he's
Restaurant Impossible?
I
Yeah,
can't
that
remember.
one, and then there's a bunch of chefs who do
It's
that.
not Gordon Ramsay. It's
Is
another
it
guy.
Robert Irvine?
Let me look him up because
That's
he.
dude, the military dude.
Let me see. Let me see. No, it's not Robert Irvine. Oh shoot, I can't remember. I have the guys. Anyway, doesn't matter who he is. What he's telling restaurant, yeah, it doesn't matter. Uh, what he tells restaurant owners is like when you need to ask when somebody comes to your restaurant, you need to ask if this is their first time being there, right? And if it is their first time there, you need to give them something for free, right? They're going to sit down and have a meal. Maybe you give them a free dessert or something like that. You offer them something for free. And then the manager, whoever is like, should come around at some point, ask how the meal was, if they're enjoying it, make sure everything's going okay. And then be like, well, did you try the chicken? You guys have to try the chicken. Here, let me go get you guys a coupon or a special offer or something. So next time you come back, you need to try this, right? And then on the second visit, you offer them something else. And the reason being that in the restaurant industry, anyway, it takes about 3 visits to your restaurant for somebody to become like a habitual customer and they will come back to your restaurant again. And that's what you want. All that to say, take that idea, take that model, and think about it in terms of your author business, right? Maybe what you do is you have a sample of the first chapter. You give it away for free. You don't even collect an email. It's just out there in the ether. Anybody can find it. Maybe it's the first few chapters. Maybe it's an hour long, something like that. There's a call to action at the end for them to go join your mailing list to get the rest of it. Still for free. They go, they get the whole thing. They listen to it. It's 3 hours long. There's a call to action that they get sent. Now they're on your mailing list. So they get emailed. Probably not the same day, maybe a couple days later, because presumably they've had time to listen to the audiobook, right? That we gave them for free. And that call to action is like, hey, you can get the box set, which is normally like $30. You can get it for $15. Here's a coupon for you. Check it out. And you're making it really easy for them to make this decision, right? This is a one way that you could. It's not the only way, but it's one way you could do it. You start by just giving them something. Then, okay, they have to join your mailing list, but you're giving them something substantial, and then you're making an offer to them, like, "Hey, I'm going to give you a discounted price on this," and that's how I would go about doing it, right? So, for example, if you have a digitally narrated 300,000 word audiobook, you're looking at 30 hours there, roughly, give or take, right? So that's a big deal. And let's say you're selling direct again, right? So you're going to keep the majority of that money, right? You could charge it a decent price. And so you still have room to give them a discount, right? Maybe you show them, right, the price of like $35, which would be what it might be normally on another platform, and chop 50% off. I don't know. You do you, right? You pick, but that's just an example, right, of how you could go about doing it. That's not the only roadmap, but that's one roadmap that I could see. The other thing is that that free sample you give out before they have to join your mailing list, that could be what you put on social media. Put that out there, upload it to YouTube. Maybe you don't do YouTube, no big deal. You don't have to do YouTube. I'm just using that as an example. Put it out there in little snippets, and they can find maybe something that's just there for free that they can, and that way they're kind of sorting themselves. Some people are going to listen to it and be like, meh, okay, whatever, and they're not going to move along with it. Or some people are going to see it and they're going to be like, oh, that's really cool. I'm going to go sign up for their newsletter. I'm going to get a 3-hour audiobook. That's really cool. And so you're just making it really easy for them to move closer to what you want them to do. And I think this is just generally marketing in general, is that it has to be good for both parties, right? It should not be like buying a car. We had to do that recently, my wife and I. Was not fun. Was not fun at all. We like the car. The car is great. We're glad we got the car, but they make you sit there for 4 hours and check your credit and do all this, and then the sales manager comes in and is like, oh, yeah. It's a whole to do. That's like the opposite of what you want to be doing with your customers, whether you're doing direct sales or not, right? You want to make it the opposite experience. And I think that's key. Whether you're doing audiobooks or you're running ads to your box set on Amazon, I think this principle applies in any case. Did that, Emma? I kind of rambled on here a little bit, but was that the answer to the question? I hope it was. I'm getting thumbs up from Anne, so I think it is. But good deal.
Okay, so Pat is asking, what is the cost range for a narrator, and is royalty plans available for most of them? So I kind of just did a quick Google.
Oh, hey, I don't even have to answer this one then, right?
Yeah. It depends on the narrator, depends on experience, it depends on what production they're going to be doing. It can go anywhere between $50 and $300 per finished hour. So it just depends on, the quality that you're getting. But I have seen things be $500 to $600 per finished hour for those like higher end, well-known narrators. So it really just depends on who you're choosing. And then with royalty splits, it depends also on which company you're using. Like if you go through ACX, they have those royalty shares, and it's, usually like a 50-50, I think it is, until, the it's basically paid back. So, yeah, I don't know that a lot of other companies do royalty shares in general. Like I've seen some production companies, like Pink Flamingo is a production company I've looked into, and they don't have royalty share. It's basically you pay. They have like payment plans, but you pay for the finished hours, like the production.
Right. I know there are some too where it's the producer that's taking their royalty share, and they're going to take that indefinitely, but they use, like, the narrator is someone they have hired. And so they're essentially managing that side of it for you. Right. So there's going to be strings attached. That's just the thing to know. And maybe you're okay with that, and that's the route you want to go. Just know that, yeah, if you're going to go the royalty sharing route, you're going to have to, you're going to be attached to that for a while. Right. And that's fine. That's totally an option, totally viable. I think generally you should expect $250 per finished hour or more. That would be what I would tell you should expect. Cheaper than that, it might be somebody who's relatively new and inexperienced, and so they might give you a discount, or essentially what amounts to a discount, a lower rate, because they're new and they're looking to maybe build not just experience, but a catalog of work that they've completed. And so like $50 per finished hour, I think is going to be a little on the lower end.
Yeah, I was thinking that's
That might be harder to
very,
find.
very low. Yeah,
That's gonna
that's
be
very
hard to
low.
find. and it's going to be hard to find for the quality that you're looking for, and for everything that's a good fit. Narrators know their worth, and so they're probably going to be charging you. I'd say 250 is like the minimum of what you should expect. If it's lower than that, great, but that's what you should expect in that regard. Okay, Emma, you got the next one.
Okay, one sec. I was responding in chat. Anne
Well, the
asked,
chat looks pretty big too. There's like 75 messages in there. Holy cow.
yeah, and Anne was asking a question to follow up. And the reason to do royalty sharing is to save cash outlay, or can you hire better quality? And I was responding that a lot of newer narrators will start out with the royalty share because they want, to get. I found a fabulous brand new narrator that way. I'm tempted not to give her name, but hi Ruthie, if you ever watch this, I love you. Yeah, that's the thing. Jack,
What was that?
is the
Oh,
reason to do royalty sharing, is it to save cash outlay, or kind of what's the strategy behind that, you think?
yeah. So I mean, there's a couple reasons. Um, why a narrator would want so for them, the royalty share might be attractive because it's steady, and they might be able to get, and instead of like getting a big dump of income from some big project they're having to do and then stretching that out, be able to they'll be able to kind of have a more steady stream of income over time, is the idea, especially if they check you out and they're like, oh, okay, this person's like legit. They're actually promoting their books. This audiobook is actually going to sell. They're actually going to make money, right? And so that's part of it. Really, the quality, I don't think there's always a difference between quality or inequality between the upfront versus royalty sharing. I think a lot of narrators offer both because they probably don't mind to an extent. And depending on the terms of the contract, they might actually wind up making a little bit more money with the royalty share option potentially. So some of them are thinking in the long term, that sort of thing, and that's fine, and then that's all good. So I think that's kind of what it comes down to. But yeah, you were solicited to by someone on social media who wants to narrate your audiobooks. Well, yeah, I would I'd look into it. I wouldn't necessarily turn it down immediately, like out of hand. But yeah, I think like Emma is saying, if they get aggressive, or it's like you can tell that they're like essentially cold calling like a bunch of authors, I'd be a little wary. I would always verify and probably ask to speak with them on Zoom, right? Or something like that first before you do any exchange of money, sharing of information. I could also see there being, some scam artists looking to go that route too. So
And you know what?
I'd be
Like
wary.
my narrator, she posts regular daily TikToks and reels of the snippets of the project she's working on. So when you're auditioning the narrators, look them up on social media. Not only will it give you a better idea of their range, but it also, yeah, make
Yeah.
sure.
Hopefully, yeah, if they're reaching out to you, hopefully they have a body of work to show you. And if I were a narrator and that's what I were doing, and that's not what I thought about being a voice actor at one point in time, right? For like 10 minutes. But if I were doing that and I were like cold calling people essentially, or sending cold DMs to people on social media, I would be like, hey, I checked out your work. I'm a narrator. I think it's cool. I see you don't have audiobooks. Here's a link to some of my stuff that I've done that you can go check out. I'd like to work with you on this. And if they're approaching you in a different way than that, then like more salesy, that's a red flag to me. I would definitely be like, okay, yeah, they're not offering you like proof that they've done any work, right? They're just showing them, say, hey, I'm an audiobook narrator and I can narrate your audiobook for $2,000. Yeah, okay, that's the other end of the spectrum, right? Where you would want to avoid those sorts of things. So, yeah, good question. Good question. Kelly,
Great.
what's next?
Yeah, so Laura just asked in the chat. I heard people are choosing to do their own audio and sell direct because Amazon ACX requires the ebook and audiobook to be exactly the same, but doing audio yourself allows for greater creativity. Is that true?
I would expect that it is fairly true. I would expect that I haven't verified that, but that sounds accurate to me. Right. And there's even practical reasons why you would want your audiobook and your ebook to be different. Like depending on your writing style. So for example, right, we're all writers here, right? So this is going to make sense to everybody. Name tags, right? You have a character saying something. So, quote, I went to the store today, Molly said, right? That can be helpful in an audiobook format. But if you're like me, I use name tags only when I have to. If I don't have to use them, if it's literally just two characters going back and forth with dialogue, I use the quotation marks to communicate this is this character speaking, this is this character speaking. And I won't say he said, she said, what any of their names. I'm allowing the reader to keep it straight in their own mind, and because they're not a third grader, right? That's just my style. In an audiobook format, that sounds like a garbled mess, right? Unless you had two different voice actors, right? For example. So you would want to add dialogue tags. Sometimes you need to word things differently because it makes sense differently when you're hearing it versus when you have seen it, and so forth. So it can change. Like for example, a good um, a good narrator. Let's say your character. Let's say it says something like, "Oh, Johnny laughed and said, you are not smart, right? Bad. You get it." Instead of saying Johnny laughed and then he said, the narrator could just laugh and audibly, right? Your narrator would have the freedom to do that. And I imagine if Amazon, if that, I don't know, Kelly, if you've had the chance to verify if that's the case or not, the differences between your ebook and audiobook. I imagine, especially if you're using Amazon's digital voice, their digital narrating, it can't be any different, I would imagine, because I think they use your ebook directly in order to make that available. Then yeah, I could see where you'd want the freedom to, change some things here or there.
I'm looking it up. I'm not. Uh, I I think because they do have the ability to switch like the reader has in a Kindle app can listen to the audiobook at the same time that they're reading the ebook. Maybe that's part of why they would want that. But I'm
Yeah.
not seeing. I don't know.
Well, regardless, if there's any platform that does say that, right? And then that would be a reason maybe to go the direct sales route instead. Or
Hmm.
if you're wide, and you have, another thing too is, there's multiple levels of audio. So another strategy that you could employ is you could have multiple levels. You have your digitally narrated audio, which is like cheap. You have your traditionally narrated audiobooks, and then you have your like um, uh, premium narrated audiobooks with background sounds and things like that. Um, you might not want to like offer all three of those. That might sound crazy because that's a lot of work. But if you think of it that way, right, you could offer a spectrum of different things because some people are just going to want the simple audiobook. Some people might want like all the bells and whistles, and that's not something that you could really offer on a platform like Amazon or others. Uh, I don't know. I think it would be kind of confusing to people. With a direct store, you could make that, you can kind of customize how you package that and present that. to the customer. Yeah, Emma, you're right. I have you in the chat. I mean, you can say what you just put in the chat because it's
Oh,
essentially.
in some full cast audios, readers have pointed out, and it came to my attention. I'm like, oh yeah, they do that. But the cast, the narrators will actually omit like certain words or sentences or dialogue tags, like he laughed, and they'll just laugh instead. Or
Yeah,
maybe if the author described a sound, they won't read that
yeah.
aloud in the audiobook. They'll just insert that sound. And so it was fun because I was reading some reviews for a popular author's full cast book. I think it was Sarah J. Maas. And they were like, why isn't it just like the book? And then someone else had to be like, because they just acted out the stuff, person.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
it was, that
yes.
was cool.
He chuckled menacingly. How would you
Yeah,
do that? Something like exactly. You
you'd
give them.
rather than have them say it. But
How do you act out fainting? Okay, somebody's punking me right now. Is Anne? Are you punking me? Is that what this? No. Uh, well, maybe that would be. I don't
interesting.
know. That's good. Yeah,
Uh,
you can clip that audio and use it, I suppose. But um, but yeah, you could exactly. The narrator would have the freedom to do all of that in that context. So yeah, that'd be really good. Righty. Is that? Do we have more questions from there? Are there ones that were earlier on?
I think that
And
was pretty much it.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't
yeah,
need them.
yeah. Well, good. Well, this is a topic I know we've covered before, and so a lot of the stuff we've discussed previously. If you've been to some of these audiobook webinars, um, what I think the message I'm trying to get across with those stats and everything is that this is all growing right now. The it's not just the publishing landscape, but specifically, right, for indie readers, right? Uh, we are the landscape is changing there too. Direct sales, for one, right, is growing. The biggest thing when it comes to direct sales is having an audience already. You have to build an audience first. So if you're new, direct sales might not be the first place that you go, but it's something it's becoming a more and more viable option. And then you combine that with audiobooks, and I think you've got a recipe for the opposite of disaster. You've got a recipe for a lot of good things to happen for authors. It's kind of like the second, I don't know, it'd be the second or third or fourth gold rush, if you will, here for indie publishing, because it's going to be these two things, more and more people listening to audiobooks, direct sales becoming more and more adopted by authors and readers, and those two things are going to converge. They're already converging, and because of the nature of audiobooks, it's becoming a more viable option for authors to make money through self-publishing. So build your audience, build a foundation for your business. Maybe that means you are, in Kindle Unlimited. Maybe it means you're wide with your ebooks. And then when you're ready to move into audio, I strongly would recommend, if you've built an audience and you're doing good as far as your financials are concerned, with the money you're making from your books, whatever that means for you, I would strongly consider doing audio direct, because you stand to make so much more from it and you have control over it and everything. So absolutely. So is Free Friday going on vacation too? My newsletter, Anne, is that what you're asking? Yes, I have been in the midst of editing one of my books that is releasing tomorrow. So my newsletter did not go out last Friday. It was a whole to do. It was a thing. It was stressful. There was a graduation party that we had to go to and a number of other things. So I did take that week off. I am planning to schedule out my newsletter it'll only be one Friday that I'll actually be gone. But I'm planning to schedule that out. Yes, life does happen, even to me. It's true. But I'm planning to schedule it out, at least that Free Books Friday email. I know some of you are on my mailing list and you're keeping tabs on everything that I do, and I have to think about that whenever I'm making a newsletter, which I didn't have to before. And it's kind of nerve-wracking. If that was your goal, you've accomplished it. But but yes, no, I'm not too worried. It'll be fun. I'll what will probably happen is we'll be on vacation, or it's the day before we go on vacation, or literally we're going to Colorado from Iowa. So we'll be in the car on the way to Colorado, and I'll be like, honey, I need to write my newsletter right now. I've got 12 hours. So you drive the first leg, and I would get it all done in the car. It's probably what's going to happen, if I'm being honest. But yeah, it'll still be around. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Kansas City, exactly. Yep. So you're familiar with it then. Yes. Yep. It's a beautiful drive, but it's a long one. It's a long one. So, all right. Folks, I should mention, let me share a different window really quick. I have to do this stuff before I forget. Because we've reached the end, and I know most everybody's already checked out and has already left. I realize that, but videos, it's going to be uploaded here, bookfunnel.com/videos. Did you guys know that if you're on your dashboard, let me go here, there's a button for it right here? If you didn't know, right, you can just find it from your dashboard. And you can also click here to go to the Calendly page where we have all of our webinars here for you. Next week, of course, we have a webinar on organizing and managing group promos. This is a topic that we have talked about before, but we want to go over this one again. This is something that I think is important for organizers. If you've never organized a promo before, we're going to demystify the whole thing. So I recommend joining us for that one. Otherwise, you have all the replays here for our recent webinars. Kelly will be getting this webinar up by the end of the day today. Right? So you'll be able to come back and rewatch it if you want to, or come back to it at a later time and check it out. Otherwise, I think that's it for now. Yeah. So I don't think I have anything more. I thought there's something in the back of my mind. I'm gonna remember it later. Probably once I leave the meeting, I'll remember it. But anyway, I digress. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you, folks, for joining us. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I hope this was helpful, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos from BookFunnel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.